Hello, so this is Okuku Okochukwu Lorenta, and today I'm going to be explaining how I use the asynchronous function and also how I fetch data from APIs. And as you can see, this is my async function right here, and I already have my API key ready, and I saved it to this variable named openWeather API key string. So this my API here is saved to this variable, and then the weather latitude is saved here to this variable, and then the weather longitude is saved here to this variable. Alright, so within my async function, I saved the link. This link here gives the location of the user, and then this link here gives the weather forecast of that particular location where the user is located. So considering I already saved my API key to this variable, so as you can see, in place of latitude, I already saved my latitude to this variable, so I wrote the variable name there. I did same for longitude, and I also did same for the API key here, as you can see, which I already saved to this variable. I repeated the same for the other API that will give the weather forecast for that particular location where the user is. Now within my async function, I wrapped my code in a try block, and the purpose of the try block is to catch any errors, just in case my code or my program couldn't find the data to crash my program won't crash, but it will keep it running, but will just display these error messages that data could not be found, and this will keep the program running. Alright, so I fetched my data here using this using this variable name, which I already saved my API link to. So this block here is going to fetch the data, and then this block here says if this data is not found, throw this error, and then if the data is found, pass it into a JSON format, and I saved it to this variable current weather data. And then this is to edit the file how I want it to be displayed, how I want the data to be displayed. And then for this side of the code is to predict the weather forecast for 3 days. So this block of code here fetches this data, the forecast URL, which is this one, and it's also true. It also checks for an error, that if this is not found, throw this error. Well, if it is found, save this to this variable, fetch it and save it to this variable named forecast data, and then display forecast data. Now this function, this code you see here is a function coming from here. Now this function here is what appends. This function here is going to append the data when it is fetched into the HTML file. It's going to populate it to our HTML file. So that's what this function is going to be doing. This function is also going to display, it's going to show how the data fetch should be displayed on the screen. So when this is populated, when this is done, I call this function here within my async function in the try block. I called it here, and I replaced this data here, which I had written here. This parameter I had written here, the data parameter, I replaced it with the variable I saved my data, my fetched data to, which is the forecast data. So this function is going to get this fetched data and populate it on my HTML file. So that's what my async function does.